died instantly. The driver of the truck didn't even have time to hit the brakes until after the final impact. Whether Stephen Ray had leapt or been pushed, no one knew. I'd been in grade 9. Stephen, too. I didn't know him except by sight. He'd been in my English class, always in the same faded green track pants, a Metallica t-shirt tucked into his waistband. He never took off his winter coat, no matter the weather, and seemed perpetually buried in a layer of dirt and dry-crusted sweat. The undersized boy was the perfect effigy for every teenage ill, including boredom. Stephen dedicated his school days to becoming invisible. Sadly, the isolation he sought only made him more vulnerable. They found him under the old bleachers, discarded in a corner of the sunken field nobody ever seemed to mow. After that ordeal of unspeakable shame and torment, he disappeared from school for a few weeks, 12 days longer than the bullies had been suspended. When he returned, in October, I think, he attempted to find refuge in a bathroom stall. The hunt for him became a ritual that day. No matter how obscure the location, the graveyard kitty corner to the school, the expansive mothball clothing section of the thrift store, his torturers found him and escalated into criminal realms. Stephen never told his parents. He never told a teacher. He never said a word. He'd collect himself after each ordeal, bloody and crying, and just go on. His mom, his dad, didn't notice, because they worked odd hours to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. They loved their son, though they only ever saw him a few hours a week. But they did love him. I know. Because Stephen's story, the one I just recounted, came from their mouths at a hastily organized assembly in an unusually warm November. I didn't know Stephen. Not really. He existed, sure, but as a background extra, a prop to support the idea of a classroom. That assembly, however, I remember well. All the talk around school had been about Stephen's death. There weren't many details. He'd been hit by a truck. His parents told the full story, squirming behind a podium, bent under grief and guilt, and the student body, so usually consumed with the doom scroll on their phones, looked up. We saw the rays, I believe, as something rekindled in our beleaguered generation. We saw them. I'm not sure how else to put it. I've already written the summary of Stephen's situation, but I must include the conclusion of his parents' words. No one ever saw Stephen. We lost sight of him. We worked to ensure he had a place to live and food to eat, but it consumed us. We stopped talking. Years went by, days blending together, and it's like we forgot him. And us. Surviving? It's no way to live. You, the kids here, all of you, don't owe us anything. If you could please remember him. See Stephen in death like no one ever did in life. I'd never seen two adults crumple under their sadness before. Such extreme emotion usually sends us into the comfort of our digital addiction. Not this time. This time, we listened. What I mean to write is that their words had an unusual impact. I thought about it for a while. Others, however, did more than that. I believe the bullies, those that had maybe killed him, began it. At the time, we didn't know the names of his antagonists. Stephen's rules were posted in the form of videos through TikTok, Instagram, and even Facebook. They received little attention, except from the kids attending Buckner Collegiate. The idea was relatively simple, but difficult in practice. Rule number 1. Stephen is in your class. Number 2. He sits at every desk. Number 3. Always help Stephen. Number 4. Ensure teachers help Stephen. Number 5. Greet Stephen in the morning upon entering the classroom. Number 6. Compliment Stephen. Posters containing this exact list, no images, just words, appeared around the school soon after. It took a while for the teachers and principals to notice the strange activity in their classrooms. There's usually at least one empty desk. Someone sick or away for sports. That became where Stephen sat, and we were all expected to pretend to see him, to speak with him. It seemed like it should be a prank, but nobody went about it that way. Sure, it was weird and produced more than a few awkward chuckles. In a few weeks, though, after the initial awkwardness, we got used to it. Yo, did you get a haircut, Steve? Looks tight. Steve, me and the guys are going to Tour Hill after school. You in? Man, I hate math. I wish I had Steven's brain. The comment I personally witnessed that drew the staff into action unfolded as follows. Mr. Smith, you didn't give one to Steve. Pardon me? And I remember Mr. Smith, old school and close to retirement, looking around confused and possibly wondering which kid he'd missed. Steve, Hunter urged, pointing to the empty seat at the front of the room. Mr. Smith did not put up with shit well. He left the room and returned with the principal, Mr. Yellen, who never seemed to stop smiling, ever. Hunter left with him, and soon we had another assembly about respect and school expectations. No one mentioned Stephen Ray then, and so the pretending went on, and evolved. The moment I saw my first Stephen, a homunculi of newspaper, glue, and paint, I stopped the charade. I had found the game kind of neat and respectful when we simply saved a place and said nice things about him, the kindness he'd missed in life. But someone had gone too far. The creation had been placed before the teacher arrived, and rather than deal with what could only be regarded as an offensive gesture, they ignored its presence and went on with the lesson, confident, I'm sure, that time would reveal the culprit. No one came forward. Everyone looked uneasy. Miss Fisher used the PA system to contact the office. Yellen crept through the door a few minutes later, and didn't seem at all surprised or dismayed by the grotesque effigy. He beckoned Miss Fisher into the hall. They spoke too quietly for us to hear. When she returned, she went to her desk to retrieve a handout for Stephen. Here you are, Stephen, she said, hesitant and wondering, I'm sure, about the state of her profession. Stephen's rules remained. The other students carried on interacting with him, but I did not. The sculptor hadn't given him anything resembling human eyes. Just 2 black dots, heavy globs of paint, dense enough to reflect the harsh track lights above. They creeped me out. I put my earbuds in and stared at my phone for the remainder of the period. Miss Fisher knew and said nothing. After English, I trailed behind the students who liked to cattle by the door early. They set me apart from the crowd enough to be noticed, and detained by a large boy I'd seen around. I didn't know his name. He wore a tight t-shirt to show off almost certainly steroid-induced muscles, if the acne around his collarbone was any indication. Hey bro, he said, blocking my attempts to flow around him in the hallway. You say hello to Stephen today? What? I stammered. Follow the rules, little man, he said, and I understood a threat had just been uttered. I nodded. Yeah, okay, of course. Sorry, I'm not feeling the best today. He patted his mat of curly hair as if pondering my statement. We all gotta help, you know, bro? We all gotta give him his due, right? Sure. Yeah. Then I created one of those regrettable teenage moments, held onto for the rest of an individual's life. I lifted my palm for a high five. In horror, he looked at my hand as if I had a disease. Ew. He walked away, and I stayed there a moment, an idiot, frozen in shame. I chewed on the embarrassment until I reached music class, where I saw that the next Stephen, so much worse than the first, had been placed in the front row. They'd used a mannequin torso and a photo of the boy taped to a somewhat deflated basketball. Again, the discomfort among the class could not be more obvious. An email regarding the effigies had gone out to the teachers because Mr. O'Brien didn't mention it or change anything. When one of us urged him to help Stephen, he did so after a heavy sigh. I made a point of greeting the abomination and complimenting it. The boy from before didn't appear in the hallway after the second period or during lunch. I went to the gym and found that there, a Stephen had been compiled from an old shirt and a faded pair of track pants, all stuffed with crumpled paper. His head, this time, consisted of only an elephant skin ball. Someone had drawn a sad face on it. The boy had been set against the wall, underneath and behind the basketball net. Mr. Martinez, a former wrestler and literal giant in the eyes of a 14-year-old, marched into our awkward midst and made his opinion clear. "We're not doing this. Put it in the hallway." He selected us randomly to do the job, and I caught the authority of his index first. I remember swallowing, and how it hurt because my mouth had gone dry. The second guy just shook his head. So Mr. Martinez angrily seized the effigy, which fell apart, head from shoulders. He kicked the ball into the hallway and tossed the remains next. "Floor hockey! Sticks!" he shouted upon his return. Normally we'd rush to get the best hockey sticks. I loved floor hockey. Lower middle class kids couldn't afford ice hockey. Probably still can't. So I got really good at the street variety, acquiring hockey skills that transferred very well to the indoor floor version. I usually played goalie and got regular shutouts in grade 8. I let in 9 goals that day. Nobody seemed eager to take my place, nor did anyone complain about my performance. I strayed to the hallway, where Stephen's second corpse had been disposed of. All of us seemed to wonder what to do. The rules hadn't covered the intervention of a teacher. Yellen appeared, just before Mr. Martinez would normally send us to the locker room. For the second time that day, I saw the principal direct a teacher into the hallway. The difference from the first was that Mr. Martinez didn't return to the room. Yellen entered, rubbing his hands, smile intact. "Go get changed." We scrambled to obey. The older guy, the one on steroids, barged through the door from the hallway. "What the hell, guys?" I've never seen so many people flinch in unison. He paced the room, staring down anyone willing to look back at him. Some, including myself, had been mostly nude. I wore my shirt, but nothing underneath. Ankles caught in the entry points of my blue jeans. I couldn't handle the shame. Somehow, wearing just a shirt but no pants felt more undignified than total nudity. I only remember Matthew Green, an athlete from birth, standing with his shoulders back, completely naked in the presence of the far larger boy. "What the hell, Brian?" he echoed. "Don't give me that look. You know what you did?" The big kid, Brian apparently, continued to shout. Matthew crossed his arms. Grade 9 arms, like mine. Skinny and not chemically augmented. "We didn't break the rules. Martinez did." Brian beat his fist into his other hand. "Always help Stephen. Ensure teachers help Stephen. What were we supposed to do? Man, fuck this." For such a big guy, Brian moved fast. Before Matthew could finish speaking, Brian tackled him to the floor and began a flurry of punches. I turned away. I couldn't watch, which meant I fixated on the noise. It isn't like the movies where sound effects experts break celery or whatever off camera. The audio version of the beating consisted of only dull impacts, the occasional pop of a bone, and Brian's heavy breathing. "Holy shit," someone said. "Stop! You're killing him!" Brian roared. "I'll fucking kill you all!" I cowered on the floor, a shivering ball of fear. I glimpsed another kid getting tackled, another assault beginning. We could have swarmed Brian. There were 20 of us. Instead, I pulled up my pants and ran from the change room, and most followed. The majority went to the stairs leading to the first floor. I had no doubt they were going to the main office for help. I went the other way, racing down a ramp to the tech hallway, and to my locker. I brought out my phone and began texting my parents. "I'm sick. Can I come home?" Why didn't I call the police? Or my parents? Or at least tell them the truth? Honestly, the only explanation that offers any satisfaction is that I didn't want to worry them and or prompt their advice. In elementary school, I had a mild and very temporary bully problem. A girl kept stealing my hat on the way home. But I think I phrased my dilemma without revealing the gender, because both had suggested punching the offender in the nose, which I did. Since it happened off school property, nothing much came of it, other than one of the girl's friends explaining how my bully actually liked me a lot and was trying to flirt. Instead of communicating this outcome, I assumed my parents just didn't know what they were talking about. They were, after all, very old. I left the school that day before they replied that I could. I must have looked ill when I got home, because my mom took my temperature and sent me to bed. I didn't go to school for the rest of the week, and avoided looking at social media. I texted a friend, but they didn't know much more than rumors. People were saying that Matthew had been in a fight, and wound up in the hospital. Nobody seemed to know who put him there. Nobody but me and the other kids in that gym class. I didn't see how that could be possible, though. There were cameras in every hallway throughout Buckner. One would have caught Brian going to the change room and leaving through the same exit, or one of the others off the gym. I asked about Brian. My friends didn't know who I meant, so I described him. "That piece of shit? Haven't seen him in a while." "Was he suspended?" I texted back. He replied with a shrugging emoji. My parents decided I was well enough to go back on Monday. To say things had changed, escalated, would be an understatement. Stephen effigies, made out of random trash and every kind of fastener, appeared all over the school, tableauing the typical mundane moments in a high school kid's life. Stephen at his locker, Stephen tying his shoe, Stephen pissing into a urinal. Both care and carelessness had been involved in the creation of each figure. Like the artist needed something close to human, but didn't care about the materials they used. Mr. Martinez had been replaced with a supply teacher that Monday. A young, upbeat guy with tattoos and muscles. He seemed cool and excited, but became quickly dismayed by our lack of enthusiasm. Matthew Green hadn't returned to school. No surprise there. "Guys," the sub said, "what's the deal? We get to play hockey. This is Canadian. This is us. What's wrong with you?" I saw his nervous glance towards the brown paper towel holder, soaked in water, molded into sloppy, stinking spheres, with a pair of marbles for eyes. He kept checking his watch. He'd get to walk away soon. It'd be a story to tell. Collegiate is a school of nightmares. Oh, how badly I wanted to tell him, "Please take me with you. This place isn't safe." "Nice shot, Stephen," I said instead. "Yeah," said Kevin, an acne-riddled goblin of a boy. "Stephen's got game." A basketball rolled off the front of my foot and stopped dead against a mat velcroed to the wall. We all changed quickly at the end of the period. The stench of sweat mixed with blood, Matthew's blood, still filled the locker room. I rushed out without changing my shorts. Again, I went to the ramp leading down to the tech wing of the school. I needed my phone. I put it in my locker before gym because leaving it in the locker room invited theft. We had viciously enforced rules for piles of slop compiled into Stevens, but nothing for real, actual crime. It wasn't fair. I hated this place. I hated the world, and the universe and everything it contained. I couldn't shake the smell of Matthew's blood from my nose. I wanted to go home. And tell them what? What would I tell my parents? An email had been sent out about the rules, and the art project, representing the See Stephen initiative. I would be decrying the memoriam his parents had asked for. Students had answered. Were they grateful? Did they know? I don't know. In a rage, I threw my phone into my locker. The screen shattered. I didn't care. I couldn't breathe. I had to get out. The nearest exit just had to be all the way at the end of the hall, right by the auto class. And there, another Stephen waited, made from scraps of wood and a mannequin head, the kind with hair, so that kids in the Cosmo class could pretend to be barbers. Hi, Stephen, I said. Nobody seemed to be around, but I didn't dare risk breaking the rules. Matthew Green might not be dead, but he'd never be the same. I'd changed dramatically, from only hearing the grotesque audio of his assault. The fear of embarrassment, of being an outcast or a target for bullies, had been what I entered grade 9 with. And when none of those things had happened, to me, I'd been relieved. What I'd give to go back to September, October, to ordinary teenage anxieties. Stephen moved, and I yelped. His stiff body leaned into the exit, and he left the school. The heavy steel door banged shut. I flinched and moved a few steps back, where my eye caught a figure staring through the windows on the tech ramp. Stephen. Stephen. It's Stephen. It can't be Stephen. My thoughts scrambled for something rational to say to the widening chasm swelling in my guts. That blank visage had been imprinted with the suggestion of eyes, and a subtle smirk. The school bell rang. I'd gotten out of gym class fast, before the official end of the period. People would be coming, people to fill the space, and at least I wouldn't be alone with him in liminality. A girl, clenching her backpack to her chest, walked quickly down the ramp. Small eyes behind thick glasses searched wildly, and when they caught sight of the effigy, she stopped dead. Hi, Stephen, she practically squeaked. You look good today. Want to hang out later? I can help you with math if you want. Or you could help me. You're so smart. She looked at me next, and waited, watching. Hey, Stephen, I said. Having a good day? I nodded way too many times, as if listening to his response. Cool. Well, I saw behind the Cosmo mannequin head then, to the narrow parking lot exit, where another Stephen, the one I'd seen before at the end of the hall, bounced up and down on someone's shoulders. That Stephen hadn't moved. The one peering through the window looked very similar. That's all. It hadn't moved. I should have been relieved. There were just two similar Stevens, and someone had plucked the one by Otto from the side door. But the nervous girl still waited. I cleared my throat. Right. What I was going to say was... The girl knocked me off balance as she rushed past. More students had come, pouring down the ramp with intensity and intention. What intention exactly? I didn't hang around to discover. I ran toward the auto shop exit and tripped on the concrete steps, leading up to the small, lower parking lot. Collegiate is built on a hill. The original part had been placed at the top, a respectable pile of bricks and mortar with hardwood floors and high ceilings. Every extension afterward seemed like pragmatic vomit. Utilitarian rectangles and windowless sub-basements, sprawling toward the poorly conceived field at the bottom. The way home went the same way as the one who'd given Stephen a shoulder ride, I risked my life in the passage every day. Wide enough for a car and nothing else, I counted on the thoughtfulness of teachers not to run me down. I raced today, but for a different reason. I needed to get the hell away from Collegiate and never go back. I would tell my parents everything. I would be homeschooled, or transfer to the rich kid school on the other side of Bridal Veil Lake. Around the corner, I found the bay doors of the auto shop closed, as usual. The gap in the chain link fence promised the sanity of an ordinary neighborhood. I put my foot through and froze, as heresy unfolded in the field to my right. The boy no longer carried Stephen on his shoulders. He dragged him roughly through the long grass, and toward the old bleachers jammed in the far left corner. That's where Stephen's tragedy had begun. If he'd remained on his shoulders, I likely would have continued on and never looked back. But the indignity, the casual indifference to the rules we'd been forced to abide by, it made me angry and afraid. Why should this bastard get to do what he wants when Matthew had been killed for far less? I'd been threatened the first day his effigies had appeared because I didn't say hello. Also, if someone saw me not respond or do anything to help Stephen, then I'd be a rule breaker too. I didn't want to be beaten up or die. I retracted my foot and followed, using the trail between the graffitied retaining wall and the tall grass to stay out of sight lines. It might have been fun, like a spy movie, if not for the feeling of imminent pants defecation. Into the void beneath the bleachers, the unfamiliar boy dragged Stephen. Another figure on top of the bleachers, dressed in one of those disposable hooded rain ponchos, stubbed out a cigarette, and rolled over to press his face against a gap in the benches, to watch. I should have run away. Nobody had seen me, and so what if they had? I'd die before coming back to Collegiate. Or I'd die before I could escape. That nervous girl had waited to ensure I followed the rules. And not because she felt personally devoted to them or Stephen, but because she feared being punished. All bravado evaporated under the strain of possible danger. I had to accept it. Someone could have seen. They could be watching right now. That feeling turned out to be true within a few steps. Stephen, made of discarded frogs post-dissection, peeked from the long grasses. Flies carpeted the mutilated amphibians. All had been threaded meticulously onto steel wire, contorted into human-like ribs and arms and legs. Formaldehyde and rot stung my nostrils. I retched but didn't throw up. The flies in November, disturbed by the noise and motion, revealed the sickening head they'd been given. Stephen. His eyes belonged to cows, and they'd been nailed through the middle to a canvas backpack. Stephen had been written vertically along the left strap with a Sharpie. I had the feeling he, the real Stephen, had written it himself to indicate ownership. This belongs to me, Stephen. A person. Like you. Blood had been smeared below the punctured eyes to make a broad and open-mouthed smile. I didn't necessarily believe in evil. I knew some people did really bad stuff to one another. My parents taught me drugs and/or mental illness were behind such acts. But they'd been wrong again. This mass of smiling death, this Stephen, hadn't been fueled by rage or delusion. It had been made carefully, and with perverted thoughts about humanity. Time to leave. Hey, a deep voice called from the bleachers. Hey, boy, stand up. I can see you. I couldn't see his face inside the plastic hood. I obeyed, and glanced away to the slope leading back to the parking lot. Don't even think about it. Get over here. Two more appeared from the darkness beneath the benches. One was Brian. The sight of him seemed to double the gravity of my terror. I bent my head. I'd never outrun him. Get over here, bro, he said. Running would only make the punishment worse. Or so I thought. Brian and the other large boy, also unnaturally muscular for a high schooler, stepped aside, giving access to the cavity underneath the bleachers. Once inside, my eyes adjusted, even as they flinched from the overwhelming stench of various body fluids and excrement. Several Stevens had been hung, some by the neck, others by wrists, and 2 others were buried in the mud up to their mannequin necks. An open toolbox had been tipped over. Screwdrivers, pliers, hammers, nails, and a drill, all spilled out. Exactly what one would need to construct a Steven. Or take one apart. Brian's heavy arm wrapped around my shoulders and gripped me tightly. "Whoa, little man. What are you doing?" I had no words. I'm sure I looked horrified. So many Stevens, and all of them had been shamed, violated, tortured. But that didn't make any sense. You can't shame an object. An effigy cannot suffer. So what the hell were they doing? "I asked you a question, bro." Brian demonstrated his strength by squeezing harder. Steven was being dragged, and the rules." He let go and laughed, touching the sides of his temples with his palms, as he bobbed up and down like an idiot. "Bro, for real, little bro, that's just so, man." The other boy laughed too, and shook his head. "Bro, that's so good. I can't even. Just so good." I had no idea what they were talking about, and I guess my expression revealed it. "You trying to make sure people were following the rules, man?" The other guy emphasized. "Do you know what that means?" I didn't know. "No?" Brian's hands cupped my face. "It means, little bro, people care about these stupid things." He gestured to the broken Stevens. That's not what it meant at all. Maybe it had started that way for some, though not for me. I'd been threatened into respecting the Stevens. I'd seen the price exacted for disobedience. Despite his appearance and behavior, Brian proved more observant than expected. "You doubt it?" Quickly, I tried to shake my head against his hands. Too fast. Too afraid. He smirked and his eyes narrowed. "I get it, little bro. You followed the rules because you didn't want a beating. That's fair. You saw what I did to Matt. You're thinking too small. It's not about these dolls we're making. It's about the symbol. Got a bunch of people to really show their respect, for whatever reason, to the memory of the actual kid we killed." He released his left hand to brush a tear off my cheek. I didn't realize I'd started to cry. "His parents probably think the whole school really cares." Finally, he let me go, knowing full well I didn't dare move. The other boy stood above one of the buried Stevens and unzipped his pants to urinate on the mannequin head. When everyone sees the desecration, the spy on the top of the bleachers interrupted sharply. "Yeah, that," Brian continued. "They'll know the truth. A fucking nerd existed for people like us to use. And that includes his memory. Whatever stupid shit his parents wanted us to do. Treat him like he's alive? Like we can see him? Fuck. The only people that ever saw him were us. I mean, did you?" I didn't have to admit that I didn't. He'd been in my English class. I didn't know his name until after he died. "That's right," Brian went on. "You saw him for what he was. Cattle," the voice above whispered, and I still couldn't see the face in that cheap hood. "And you saw him as nothing, right, little bro?" the other boy asked. "Is that right?" I nodded, and not out of fear, but because I couldn't deny their logic. Steven hadn't been anyone to me before his death. And after? He'd been an inconvenience. and then a fear I wished had never come to be. Yet, I would never accept their viewpoint as true. Not that it mattered. They'd achieved so many of their awful goals through this ordeal. Stephen was dead. Murdered. The school had fallen under a cloud of suspicion and paranoid fears. They got to relive their crimes and more, over and over and over. And soon, Stephen's parents, the whole town in all likelihood, would know that, even in death, Stephen's humanity wasn't guaranteed. That's why they did it, though I doubt they fully understood. The rules, the effigies, all were intended to give honor and grace to a boy who had neither, so they could take it away. Again and again and again. That's what Brian chanted, after encouraging me to gouge Stephen with a screwdriver. Fear, again, made me obey at first, but I soon became numb. The sun went down and they stopped telling me what to do next, because it no longer mattered. They had succeeded. Stephen was dead. And we'd build some more tomorrow.
Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.